Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the Las Virgenes-Malibu Council of Governments Governing Board meeting to order today on Tuesday, November 16th, 2021 at 8:31 a.m. Roll call, Agoura.
We are here.
Good morning, Denis.
Morning.
Calabasas.
Good morning.
Hidden Hills.
Present.
Malibu.
Present.
And Westlake Village is here. All right. I need a motion this morning to approve our agenda.
I so move. Second.
Roll call again. Agoura.
Yes.
Calabasas.
Yes.
Hidden Hills.
Yes.
Malibu.
Yes.
And Westlake Village, yes. Motion, agenda is approved 5-0. Mr. Dipple, do we have anyone who wishes to make a public comment this morning or who has submitted a written one?
I have not received anything in writing, nor have I been contacted, but I'm not sure if there's anyone in the meeting that's a member of the public. I don't see anybody, but
Now's the time to raise your hand if you're on Zoom and you wish to make a public comment. I don't see anyone. All right then. Okay, so then we'll proceed to the consent calendar. I need a motion to proceed to approve today's consent calendar unless someone wants to speak on a specific item on the consent.
So moved.
Agoura Hills moves approval of consent.
Calabasas seconds that.
Okay, roll call. Agoura.
Yes.
Calabasas.
Yes.
Hidden Hills.
Yes.
Malibu.
Yes.
And Westlake, yes. The consent calendar is approved 5-0. And we move to our favorite part of the agenda, and that is our executive director's report.
oh, I wish it was my favorite part.
Oh, we love it. You love it.
Just briefly, the COG's measure 8-year allocation was going to be on the November agenda because LA County wanted to submit a project, and then at the last minute Friday, they said that they didn't want to submit the project. They wanted to wait until next year. So I just wanted you to be aware that that's why that's in my executive director's report, and that's why it's not on the agenda. They were planning to add money to a project that they're doing out in Agoura, or they're planning for out in Agoura and Westlake, that has to do with signal synchronization and some fiber, but they're going to wait until next year. I did want to bring to your attention, and I'm glad that Drew and Chuck are on. Last month, Drew Smith from the fire department and Chuck both spoke on the evacuation plan. And as you'll recall, that was something that we'd been waiting for LA County Office of Emergency Management or Emergency Services to complete. And they're working on getting a new vendor, and they're dividing it up into zones and GIS, and it's become very complicated. But I was pleased to get the update, and I know the city managers were at the TAC meeting, about how Chuck and Drew prepared the evacuation plan and are doing exercises. And anyway, it was very reassuring to me, and I wanted to pass that along to you because it had been listed as a COG priority project, and it's just impressive that our local people are doing it. And I don't mean that in any way against the Office of Emergency Services, but the fact that Drew and Chuck are actively moving forward with that and doing the exercises was very impressive. So I just wanted to pass that along to all of you. And I guess that they can just touch on that when it comes to their part in the agenda if they want, but my thanks to them. On redistricting, following the presentation at the October meetings, by representatives from the California and the County Commission. I submitted additional comments to the respective commissions, specifically the State Commission, because as you may have seen, one of the maps for the Assembly District includes all of the COG cities except Hidden Hills. And my comments were, it seems like that it would be easy, since Hidden Hills is less than 2,000 people, to include them in the district and then carve out 2,000 people someplace else. But I haven't heard back from them, nor do I expect to. But I just wanted to pass that along. With regard to homelessness, I can't begin to say how much time in the past couple of months that I've spent on this scope of work that is still not complete, going back and forth with the county. I don't want to be Ashley O from the county CEO's office, from the homeless initiative team, has been very helpful, but it's just the bureaucratic process and the hoops that we have to jump through. So I do want to highlight that. It's on the agenda later, so I will go through that in a little bit more detail, but it's just been an interesting process. And I've tried to engage or bring Gabriel into some of those meetings more, just so he has a better understanding of the whole process. So it also gives me somebody to commiserate with after the meeting. So, and speaking of homelessness, we are having a homeless working group meeting next Monday, the 22nd at 4 p.m. And I've invited the Sergeant Dietrich from the host team and Lieutenant Vienna from the Met team to provide an update. And I've also requested, I don't see Tessa on yet, but I reached out to Tessa and asked her if she could get the latest from Supervisor Kuehl's office, as far as if we could get some sort of update on the encampment removal and how that's going. So we'll be doing that. And then let's see, the COG's Highway Working Group is meeting on Tuesday, December 7th with Metro to go over the existing projects in the 8th year project list that we just submitted and was just approved by the governing board, in addition to start preparing for the next round. So we'll have this kickoff meeting next month, and then things kind of get quiet around the holidays. And then we'll pick it up again after the first of the year and working with all of the cities and the county on various projects. So let's see. I think that concludes the highlights of the agenda. If there's anything else that's in there that you have any questions about, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
Anybody have questions, Terry? All righty, so now we're moving on to information item B. Terry, you want to introduce our speaker on that item?
And I believe that's going to
be
be
Ms. Mendoza down at, yes, I see her.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, I think we were waiting for John Heath and Bill Brand, were we not?
Well, it's my understanding that Bill Brand was making a presentation to SCAG this morning, and so that he wouldn't be on. But I thought that John was going to be on, and I told him it would be about 8:45, so he just might be waiting.
Let me text them real quick.
Okay, so let's do the city manager's reports first, and then we can swing back to that. Terry,
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Fine, we'll just go out of order. Okay, Nate, where are you? There you are. I see you. Good morning, Nate.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all. In relation to COVID-19 and our actions, we are still having all of our public meetings held remotely. And again, anticipate beginning of the year, we're going to try, it looks like, to aim to have in-person meetings. And we will have our council reorganization on December and that will be virtually. Some other things, not much changes otherwise from operations with our city, but we did hold our first senior citizen event. We had our Thanksgiving lunch this last week. So it was a first in-person event we were able to do kind of in with a larger group. All were vaccinated that were in attendance, and that was actually the seniors were the ones that demanded it. So it was good. And it was a big success for us. So good to see all that happening. And then just a lot of what we're doing staff-wise is looking at all of the ARPA funds and all the webinars going on. I'm sure a lot of your staff are participating in those. Just want to thank Jeff and the league for making sure we have all that information and making sure we're connected everywhere. Other than that, I'll turn over to Denis if he has anything else.
The only thing, Nate, that I wanted to share was that we had a council meeting last week, and one of the things that we spoke at length about was the redistricting and the problems that Terry just brought up with the redistricting. And we've asked the school district and Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy and some of the other partners with us to weigh in on the redistricting commission and see if they can affect to keeping us together. Not only Hidden Hills, but if you look at the maps are all over the place. It just, and I mentioned this, looks like these people just were put together, make everybody miserable. Nobody agrees on with these maps. So most of all, Agoura Hills. So I just wanted to share that, and I hope we can all stay together and visualize the future with the same representation. So that's all I have, Nate.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Calabasas. Alicia?
So on the COVID front, we had our first hybrid city council meeting. So for those council members who wanted to come back in person, we went back in person. And for anyone who wanted to stay on Zoom, they were able to stay on Zoom. Vaccination was required to be in the council chambers, and it was just council members and staff. And it went really well. So our goal is to get back in person. We're just trying to figure out the technology so that we can still, even after the first of the year, accommodate those who want to stay home. On the redistricting part, same as Agoura, we're actively trying to get out the message on what maps we support. Last night, James Bazagian testified before the County Redistricting Commission and shared the same thoughts about the different maps that we support and those that we don't. And we're continuing to work on that. So that seems about it for now. And we're beginning to have in-person events. Reorg is also going to be a hybrid, and our seniors are doing a holiday event. So we're doing things slowly and safely, but really trying to get back.
Thank you. Hidden Hills, Stuart or Enico, or?
Want me to start, guys? Hi, good morning, everyone.
Where are you, Carrie? Yes, I do want you to start.
Here I
Sorry.
am. Hi.
I just have a block with you. I don't know what it is.
Oh. Maybe we should get into that a little bit,
We
Kelly.
should probably talk about that.
All right.
Well, I'm almost done with the president, so.
Like everyone else, we are ready to go with hybrid meetings when the time is right. We had all the equipment and we tested it, and then took a step back from that in September. Two other items of note is last night at we had a special council meeting where we presented the draft of our housing element, and went very well. We'll take one more look at it next week and then send it off to the state with fingers crossed. And a couple of weeks ago, Captain Becerra and Sheriff Villanueva hosted a town hall meeting in the city at in the community association, and it went really, really well. It was really well attended. Some very good questions and some good interactions with residents. I think we're all pleasantly surprised at the outcome of it. So Stuart, Aniko, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think you covered it, Carrie.
Oh, well, thanks.
Okay. Malibu, Steve, Karen, there you are. Okay.
Thank you. Good morning. On COVID, we are continuing with our remote meetings. We don't have a date set in terms of when we're going back. We do have a regular discussion item with our city council. So we will continue with that until council feels that we are comfortable with making a change there. Regarding, I just wanted to follow up, Terry had mentioned some of the work regarding removal of the homeless camps. We just were completed with a rather major operation here with the camp at Zuma Beach. That was completed, wrapped up last week. I want to thank the Sheriff's Department, Beaches and Harbor, the host team, county, all of our partners who helped with that effort. So that area has now been posted as off limits. And we're going to continue to work on some of the other camps within the city. Also wanted to note that we just passed the 3-year anniversary of the Woolsey fire. We commemorated that at our recent city council meeting, celebrating those who have been able to get rebuilt and also extending our sympathies and understandings with those who are still suffering from the tragedy and still trying to get back to normal. So hard to believe it's been 3 years. I think that's it for me, and I'll turn it over to Karen or Mikey if they have anything they'd like to add.
Oh, thanks, Steve. Just briefly, the redistricting, I think you all know we also would like to stay with the COG because of all of the reasons. And I will say that Dennis Weber's letter was just so well written. I appreciate that, Dennis. It really summed it up. And thank you too, Terry. So we'll see how that shakes out. And yes, the Zuma encampment is a very big, I would say, victory for the city of Malibu. It took a lot of coordination, a lot of work on the parts of everybody that Steve just mentioned. And for any of you who come out to Malibu, it was at the Zuma entrance, kind of at the end of Zuma Creek. And I wanted to acknowledge Gabriel for his ongoing work. It's really, I don't know what to call it other than some kind of a calling. And I appreciate that very much, Gabriel. So that's all, Kelly. Thank you.
Thanks. Mikey, did you have anything? Okay. All right, Rob, where are you? There you are. Okay.
I'm here. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. Yeah, not a lot to report for today. It's similar to everybody else. I mean, we're still on virtual meetings through the end of the year with our council, and likely to be back in person, we think, in January. And so we have 2 more meetings. The next meeting is December 1st, and that's our reorg meeting where we select the new mayor and vice mayor. And then December 8th is our last council meeting for the year. And then other than that, everything's sort of going on as normal. We're planning our winter holiday events, and that's all going well. So nothing more to report really related to COVID. But Kelly, if you have anything more to add?
I just wanted to say that the city of Westlake Village is having their sing-along this year after a year of hiatus. And we welcome other city groups and agencies to sing. All you have to do is contact me or our front desk. It's a very fun event. We'd love to see members of our sheriff's department or perhaps our fire department or anyone who actually wants to sing is welcome. So I'm encouraging that. It's a very festive and fun thing. So we'll be waiting for your call on that. Okay.
Yes, December 4th.
Oh, right. Thank you, Rob. I should tell you the date. December 4th, 12 noon at the shops, which is commonly known as the Target Center in our city. Okay. So if that's everybody, any follow-up questions for any of the city's managers before we move back to item B? Okay. So let's swing back then to the brand. It's a long name. Where are you? Where are you, Ms. Mendoza? There you are. Thank you. So please introduce yourself and proceed.
We actually.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Oh, hi, John. Hi, John.
Good morning, everyone. We actually have a much simpler name now, and that's exactly why we decided to go with Our Neighborhood Voices. It is an initiative that deals with local control of land use, and it's a pleasure to join you all for a few minutes this morning, along with my fellow initiative proponent, Councilmember Mendoza from the city of Brentwood in Northern California. We put this initiative forward for one simple reason and one simple reason only, and that is because we believe that folks like you, the locally elected officials, are best positioned to make these critical decisions about land use planning and zoning in our communities. I live in and represent, from a community activist standpoint, the unincorporated community of View Park in Windsor Hills. Some of you may know that. It's in South Los Angeles near the Crenshaw district, predominantly African-American. We have a mix of homeowners, mostly single family homes, but we do have apartments and multi-unit buildings, and we have a range of different incomes, but predominantly higher income for African-American folks. And we are very concerned, along with many of our neighbors in Black and brown communities and working class communities across the state, about the impact specifically of SB 9 and SB 10, what we like to call the thoughtless density laws, but basically laws that will open up our communities for continued, note I say continued because the gentrification and economic displacement is already going on. These bills are just going to accelerate that. And for what? At the end of the day, we're going to get more expensive housing. It's not going to be affordable. It's not going to be placed in a location where it would make more sense, where we have the infrastructure to handle that. And of course, we're going to be left with foot in the bill. You all, I know I don't have to tell this group about the impact of additional housing units on things like roads and sewers and schools and parks and how you pay for all that. So, our position is that there's a better way to do this. And it involves everyone working together. It does not involve telling people to sit down and be quiet and you can't say anything about what happens in your community. We are very, very conscious of, and in fact, another thing that motivated us is the desire to protect CEQA. Most of you may know, if you read SB 9 carefully, you'll see that it basically amounts to one of the largest categorical exemptions from CEQA in California history. So, we're looking at all this and we're saying, you're going to hurt the environment. You're not going to produce any affordable housing. You're not taking any homeless people off the street. You're going to further burden our infrastructure. So we've got to do something to deal with this. So that's exactly what this initiative is, folks. Quite simply, it's designed for any land use planning or zoning law, if you're a city or a county charter or general law, you have the ability to adopt a law, an ordinance that will conflict with state statute and have that be upheld by a court, because that will be a matter of constitutional law under Article 11 of our state constitution, which will say basically, with a few exceptions, obviously projects in the coastal zone, large electric power plants, utility infrastructure projects, those are obviously state matters that local agencies won't be involved in. But for all other land use planning and zoning matters, hey, a city or a county should have the right to weigh in on that if they so choose. If you want to follow the state statute, feel free. But we think this is very important. I would invite you all to visit ourneighborhoodvoices.com for more information, including a sample resolution that's posted there if you're interested in adopting a resolution for your particular municipality that supports the initiative. If you want to join us, we're definitely in major fundraising and signature gathering mode. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but I'm going to kick it over to my fellow proponent, Councilmember Mendoza, to take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for all of that. And he covers everything pretty well. I am actually newly elected, so I'm the one with the least political experience out of everyone. I actually got involved in our local politics in Brentwood over some land use matters, which were moving our urban limit line and actually turning golf courses into apartments. And that's how I got involved. And after seeing that happen locally and the push that we were getting from investors and developers, and me speaking up a lot about it, my husband said, well, why don't you run? So I ran. So one of the number one reasons I ran was over housing and how we were making decisions that weren't in the best interest of our residents, but were in the best interest of investors. And I am a big proponent of affordable housing. I didn't think that as a city, we were doing the right job when it came to that, and our residents also. And when I was approached about this initiative, I was pretty naive about the whole process, but I'm kind of glad I was, because it is a huge undertaking. I listened to everything they had to say, and I'm actually originally from East Oakland. And growing up in East Oakland, I lived on a split lot with one house divided into two. So I know exactly what initiatives like SB 9 are going to do. And I think there is a time and a place for that, but as a city, we need to be able to plan for that. You know, John mentioned all of the infrastructure impacts that can happen that we're not ready for, that we won't be able to forecast and analyze and make sure that we can manage. That was one of the problems. Gentrification for me is a big one. I saw gentrification happening all over Oakland. It's continuing to happen in Oakland and Berkeley, the areas that I grew up in. And it's pretty sad because it's moving people of color with lower financial means out of the area. So if you rent something and your landlord comes in and says, hey, I can turn this into 4 units and make 4 times the money, then you're out and you don't own it. You have to go and there's no protections for you there. So that's another reason that I joined. But even in my own community, which I'm lucky, I live in a middle class neighborhood now. I worked really hard for that. But I'm seeing it in our schools. We're overbuilding in our schools. And even in an area like mine, you have a vast array of social economic groups. And what I'm seeing in our schools is that we are so overcrowded that when it comes to things like AP classes, the kids with lower incomes that don't have money for tutoring aren't being able to get into AP classes because they can't compete. When it comes to sports, it just happened, I heard, with the varsity team, there was 90 girls that tried out for 40 spots. You know who makes it? The kids who have money to pay for training make it. So we're overpopulating our areas. We're not sustaining the infrastructure, schools being a big one. And the people that keep getting hurt are lower income people. And lastly, and I've talked to John about this, I find it really interesting that people are now bringing up redlining. We want to undo all of these racial injustices that happened. And I think that's great. I think we have a long way to go. But it's interesting to me that now that people of color are buying single family homes, they're now telling us that single family housing is somehow racist. So you're going to hear that. I ask you, I talk to all of my family and my friends and, a lot of people of color, and all of us think that that is, it's a red herring, and it's not something that people of color say. If you find someone of color say it, that'll be interesting because I haven't seen anyone of color say that, but I would hope that you would support the initiative. I think there's just too many holes in what Sacramento is doing now. I think we need to be smarter about our land use. I do not argue that we need to figure out affordable housing, because there's a difference between affordable housing and a housing shortage. Like I just looked at I'm waiting for the 2020 census data, but at the 2010 said there was 0.4% homeless and 8% vacancy rate. So there's something going on that we have homes that are vacant and not being rented. So that's kind of my stance on it. I hope that you can support us. I think that we, being at the local level, are best suited to make decisions when it comes to our land use. And my residents can impact my vote. We can't really impact Sacramento's vote when it comes to things. So keep it local. Let's listen to our residents, and hopefully we can get to a better place when it comes to housing and the shortage.
And we're happy to take any questions that you all may have.
Yeah, I'll start as a comment. Thank you for coming today. This is a very interesting discussion. I actually spent a lot of time in Brentwood many years ago.
Oh, nice.
When you were very young. Let me ask you this. I have a question and then a comment. I'll lead with my comment. What is it that you are looking for COGs like ours to do? You say obviously you want our support, but are you looking for something specific? You must know that as a COG and as individual cities, we all opposed the passage of both SB 9 and SB 10 unsuccessfully, obviously. What are some specifics that you might need from a group like ours?
I think thank you for that, by the way. One of the big things right now is just getting the information out to the people, because you guys know how it is when you're talking about land use planning. That's probably one of the most exciting topics around, right? Everybody's eyeballs glaze over when you start talking about land use planning and zoning, because they don't understand how critical that is to impacting our community. So for you all as local leaders to just, let folks know that, yes, as you just said, Kelly, we did lose on SB 9 and 10, but the fight is far from over, and that this initiative is a way to actually restore some balance and to create a place and a space for our voices to be heard on these critical issues about literally what gets built right next door on our street and on our block in our communities. And then also, you know, the sample resolution that's posted on our website, our neighborhoodvoices.com. Take a look at that. Feel free to share that. Consider taking that to your fellow elected officials and getting them to adopt that and endorse and support the initiative.
I think the other thing is that we are, I mean, you look at other initiatives that have happened around the state and they have a lot of money. This is grassroots. So it is John and I talking to cities and people around our communities that is what's going to move the needle on this. We really need your support on the resolution, but also sharing the information with your residents, going onto your Facebook pages, going onto your next doors, explaining to them that they no longer have a voice, because they're going to come to you like, why did you approve this? And why did you do this? And I can't find parking. You don't get a say anymore. And communicating that to your residents and inviting them to join us in, you know, signing the petitions. And I mean, unfortunately, raising money is, I had no idea how much it costs to put a petition out and raise money, but every petition and the legal fees and even the printing and the shipping, it's a lot of money. So we really need your help getting the word out to your residents if you can, in any way, shape, or form. I'm on my Facebook, I'm on my Nextdoor, I'm on my Instagram all the time. So that would be greatly appreciated. And if you do the resolution, letting us know, because we are trying to keep track of all of the cities that are putting forward the resolution and passing it. So if you could do that also, that would be great.
My question is, we have done that in our city. We've reached out, our city manager and staff have reached out to all our HOAs to inform them of this development in state law. What's your opinion on the HOA situation? In other words, you know, we've had some HOAs in our community, and I'm sure we're not alone, you know, and all the other cities give legal advice regarding their own CC&Rs, that altering their CC&Rs to prevent this will have some legal effect. Do you have any opinion on that?
You know, I haven't looked at that specific issue, Kelly. I do know that SB 9 was written to be, you know, as comprehensive as it possibly could. So, you know, other than
it doesn't mention that. Doesn't say anything about homeowners associations.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, other than, you know, if you're I know there's an exemption for historic districts, but I always say to people, okay, you know, you may figure out a way to carve out an exemption for yourself, for your little community, but what about the folks next door, right down the street? As Sovita said, you know, this is an issue that impacts all Californians. And this really, to me, the exciting thing, I'm certainly not you know, this is my first statewide political effort. I'm an affordable housing guy. I do affordable housing for my day job. So, you know, getting involved in a political campaign is the last thing that I wanted to do, but it's exciting because it's bringing together locally elected officials and just regular folk from the community like us that all have a common goal, which is to make sure we have the opportunity to get good, solid land use policy in place so we can produce the affordable housing and the other things that our communities need. And I think that's a message that will resonate with everybody once it gets out there. But, you know, of course, that's the challenge, is getting past the noise, because we're being told that, well, if we just built more housing everywhere, then, you know, our housing crisis will be resolved. And of course, we know that's a fallacious argument.
Yeah, really quickly, Tony Atkins did mention it when she brought it to the floor. The interesting thing is that it's not in any, like, you know, John mentioned, it's not in the bill at all on SB 9 that they're exempt. They were very specific about who they exempted. So my understanding is it's going to be a court challenge. So I think that they're going to get away with imposing it on homeowners until someone in a homeowners association decides to sue, and then the courts will decide. Is what I mean, John, if I'm wrong, I don't know. That's what I was told, that because it's not specifically mentioned, they are not exempt. And she did say it, but she didn't write it in the bill for some reason. So therefore it doesn't hold. But I mean, we'll see. I'm sure if we don't get through with our initiative, I'm sure you'll see that in court.
Yeah, the court, California court will have to decide that. Okay, anybody else have questions for either John or Jovita?
No, I just wanted to add that the homeowners association issue was a big thing in our community. And we actually worked with our city attorney who felt that HOAs would be exempt if the CCNRs were updated with certain language. So not that it helps all of California. And I think that's a really valid point that we need to look out, beyond our own gated communities and communities like ours, but we are urging our own communities to update all of their CCNRs. But I really appreciate hearing everything that you presented this morning. So thank you for being here.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Kelly, this is Dennis. I had heard that the state preempts anything that's built into the CCNRs. I know most of the communities in our city are also have CCNRs, especially the biggest one, Marston Ranch. They formal and they cover every house. And this week, I think this week or next week rather, we're going to have I'm having an HOA meeting with all the representatives. So I'm sure this is going to be one of the items that'll come up in that discussion with each of the HOAs. So I'll let Terry know what the outcome is, and he can let the rest of the cities know.
Kelly, Stuart.
Yes, Stuart, go ahead.
I think obviously Hidden Hills is unique in that 99% or 100% of everybody lives in an HOA. There is some strong opinions that the CCNRs should trump this, but I don't think it'll be resolved until it gets in front of a judge somewhere. There's a lot of different opinions. We as a city are taking a look at this current initiative, John, that you're talking about. We'll be talking about it. Carrie, when do we meet with lobbyists and so forth? I think tomorrow?
Today, 2:30.
That's right. Yeah, I'm getting too many meetings here. So we're going to be talking about this. It's a hot topic for Hidden Hills. And I do believe that this is being presented in a way to not focus on any communities of color, any communities that have been around for years and years and years, whether they be minority or otherwise. It's being focused on, this is a way to get these sort of racist groups that live in homes, single family homes, and predominantly white. It's just become just an awful, ugly attitude coming out of Sacramento. And I find it just personally disgusting. There's no thought. Trample small communities that have been around forever, whether it be Leimert Park or whether it be Boyle Heights or any of these areas, they just don't exist because they don't fit the construct that Sacramento wants to create. So anyway, as you can tell, we're passionate about it. Personally as well, I will be endorsing and contributing to the campaign.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, just a follow-up comment. The HOA discussion, we've had a little bit of that in our city as well. That is a further polarizer. I mean, in other words, in my opinion, first of all, I don't agree that amending your CC, in my, legal opinion, I am a lawyer. I don't agree that amending the CCNRs is going to get you out of SB 9. There's no case law, in my opinion, that actually supports that. Other lawyers who have a lot more experience than me disagree with me. But my point is that even if that were the case, then this just further exacerbates the problem. Areas in which there are no HOAs or are unincorporated or don't have are then going to be at the mercy of SB 9 and homeowners associations, gated communities, which probably tend to be higher income and wealthier, then get this protection. It exacerbates inequality, and I find that really disturbing. And I could not agree with you more when both of you said that SB 9 does not create affordable housing. Our city, Westlake Village, if we were to divide our single family lots, there would be no affordable housing. It would be more houses and a greater density, but much like all our communities, none of that housing would be affordable. So I really wanted to thank you for this. We'll, on the part of my city, we're going to be looking into this. I appreciate the time and effort that you're putting into it. It's very important, your work. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you all for allowing the opportunity, and thanks to Terry for the invitation.
Yeah, thanks, Terry.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Take care.
Okay, we are on to our agencies. Terry, did you have anything before we move on?
No, I didn't. Thank you.
Chuck?
All right, can you hear
Here
me?
we are.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Chuck.
Hi, hello. Okay, excellent. So before I get into the evacuation plan, let me say it's been 6 weeks since I without an injury. So I didn't break anything or hurt myself in 6 weeks. So right now it's a new record. Let's keep that going, right?
Looking good, Chuck. Very good.
Thank you. So yes, as you mentioned earlier, and I mentioned this before, but one of the first mandates I got when I took command was to update all our EOPs. They hadn't been updated in a decade. So I got together with Drew and my CHP counterpart, Captain Ford, and we came up with this massive piece of work. It's massive, but it's so impressive that we gave a copy to Kevin at OEM and Maria Castillo-Chong because of the Topanga area. And it's a great plan. And then we even went even more specific, and we went, that's the area evacuation fire plan. And we have cities evacuation plan for Calabasas, Westlake, Agoura, and so forth. And all the city managers have the corresponding evacuation plans. We've drilled it a few times, one in terms of communication. We ran a communication drill to see if our radios work in those areas. And then we drilled it along the elderly and the invalid, people that can't really move around. And so thus far, drills, they identify weaknesses, and we corrected some of those weaknesses. But right now we have a good plan. And mind you, it is a byproduct of what happened to Woolsey. They said we need to update all our plans, and we did so. So right now we're sitting on a good plan. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Questions for Chuck? Thanks, Chuck. Glad you're healthy.
Thank you.
Okay, Drew, I see Drew and Megan.
We are here. Well, your fire family is doing good. We are in the midst of fire season, as we know. Once again, I always talk to a traditional fire season that we have, because we know our largest wildfire growth is during our Santa Ana. So we had some dry weather, and I know that a fire weather watch or warning was not listed, but however, even though it wasn't, Captain Becerra and I communicate about the risk, because you don't necessarily need a red flag to have a large fire, something that has some challenges and complexity to it within the COG area. So Chuck and I communicate that, and we have a plan in place, which Chuck referenced, that we communicate on these topics routinely. His watch commanders are very engaged in communicating, as well as the deputies that stop by the station, stuff that you may not see, whereas deputies stop by the station just to touch base with your firefighters, to get that face recognition, to see who's working, and if we have any plan. They notice that we have extra fire equipment in the area. So besides us having and building these plans, it's some of the smaller pieces that come together that make this work, and that's the interaction that we have every day. Besides the fact that we always have good coffee at the fire station, so the cops like to come by here. But with that being said, it's really a good relationship on how we communicate what we're going to do. We did have one small fire at the top of Stunt Road, which is, it wasn't homeless, it was just malicious in nature. It seems like, or accidental in nature. It was relatively small. We took quick action with it, and 69 Bravo once again really tremendously provided that opportunity for those quick turnaround times. We still have our contract error. We will be looking at the weather outlook for if we're going to release any of that contract air, and that's based upon Mother Nature, of course. But as you're driving around within the communities or in the Santa Monica Mountains, what you'll like to see is with the close to 1.5 inches of rain we've had within the last month and a half, about 2 inches of green grass. And that's really favorable for those soil moistures to stimulate that new growth, because small green wet grass is a huge suppressant for ember cast that helps reduce that potential. Because I can tell you from, and I've talked to this before, I use 3 gauges. I use Halloween, I use Thanksgiving, and I use Christmas. And so now we're looking at Thanksgiving to Christmas and how many wind events we get, because about every 7 to 10 days, we start getting focused with a potential Santa Ana wind event. So we're proposed to have one this weekend within 72 hours of the day that it's supposed to be there. The National Weather Service is very good. We have conference calls regarding that for the decision support on how we're going to staff and how strong it will or will not be. And that gets communicated also to Chuck's shop there. So we're all in favor of what we're going to do to have that plan in play for that operational readiness. And that's what I have for me, and I'll leave it to Megan to see if she'd like to couple on to anything.
I don't have anything this morning. All good.
Any questions for either Drew or Megan? All right, let's move on then.
Thank you for the support.
Thank you. Good news. There you are, Jeff. Hi.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Jeff Kiernan with the League of California Cities. I'm putting in some links and things about what I'm about to talk about into the chat just for everyone. We're obviously working on a lot of our strategic planning, going about that. We've got a webinar coming up on December the 1st about the new the new laws that go into effect next year, or some of those that have already been urgency measures and have gone into effect. So that's on December 1st from 9 to 10:30 in the morning. I know some of you may be interested in participating in that. Our holiday party is back. We are going to be doing that at our California Club location downtown on December 9th. And we are taking RSVPs for that already. Also, one of the links included here is our mid-session legislative letter. This is the LA County Division's sort of mid-session check-in with our legislators. All of our city managers and city clerks also got a copy of it. And it just helps explain the bills that we took positions on. It lists who voted for and against our positions. And then it reminds them, those legislators, that we are going to be continuing to put information out about their votes and their support for our local cities at the end of this 2-year session as well. So wanted to touch base on that. The news that President Biden signed the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act yesterday is certainly good for California cities, fixing our roads, bridges, airports. So there's lots of money in there for California. And so there's also a link that's California specific information about how much money and what that money will go to here in California. I'll just touch base, since you had a big presentation on the brand initiative. The League of California Cities, our policy committees and our board put together a working group to talk about what was originally ACA 7, the legislative vehicle to put that on the ballot. They're also talking about the brand initiative that is being circulated for signatures. They've had about 8 or 9 hours of meetings already. They've, I don't know where they're going to come down on it. They've discovered and they're talking about it, but it's not. I wouldn't say that there's a 100% support in that room. They do have quite a bit of concerns about some of the things, the way it's drafted, and so. Their last meeting is tomorrow. They're meeting for, I think, 3 or 4 hours just to try to get through everything in order to make a recommendation that will go to our board the first weekend of December. So hopefully once they put together sort of a report and pass that on to their board, it'll be something that I can share with you. And obviously we'll have a board recommendation at the end of the day. I know we're beginning to look and really are concerned about many of the initiatives that are on the ballot or potentially could be on the ballot. One of them would severely restrict a city's ability to get their fees and also raise any new taxes, basically requiring all new taxes and fees to go to the voters. So that's something we're really concerned about, and that could be a big impact on local governments as well. So I think that's all I wanted to cover this morning. So I just wanted to let you know if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Questions for Jeff? Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right. Terry, who is next? Who do we see? I see Nancy. Aurelia, I think, said she had to step out for a few minutes.
Yes, she did. I don't see
Nancy's
any.
there.
Oh yeah, there's Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, everybody. I was actually just popping off myself. I don't really have much of a report today. The Assemblywoman has spent this off legislative cycle doing much traveling for work, legislative events, speaking on cybersecurity. We will be focusing a lot of our 2022 bills and our whole take on lots of her work in cybersecurity, as well as many local issues. Locally, our office is still drowning in EDD. So if any of your offices do have problems, get calls, please feel free to send them to us. I know we are not the assembly person for many of the cities in this COG, but we are happy to help. We do have liaisons that we work with. We've worked on thousands of cases since the beginning of COVID. So please feel free to send them to us so we can help them. And that's about it. Have a wonderful holiday. I'm going to Hawaii, so I will.
Oh, that's exciting.
And I will be singing with the Westlake group.
I heard that.
So,
I got that very exciting email. Made me very happy.
I
Yes.
encourage you all to join us.
Thank you, Nancy. Terry, let's see.
I think that's. I think we're
don't
good.
I don't see anyone else. So, okay. That moves us to our action item for the day. Terry?
The fun stuff.
Yeah.
The just to backtrack a little bit, the county last summer, the County Board of Supervisors directed the county staff to put together a 6-month contract and scope of work for homeless grant because they didn't want to commit to the whole, they didn't have the time, I guess, to commit to the whole year. So now we're in another period where we're looking at a 6-month grant that's going to run from January 1st to the end of June, with the understanding from the CEO's office that the Board of Supervisors is committing to funding for the fiscal year of 22-23. But unfortunately, because of that, it just means a lot of these 6 months grant, which take a lot of time, and the past 2 grants, the county has revised the contract and the scope of work, so it's different than it was the previous time, which just adds to my frustration in this whole process. But to kind of cut to the bottom line, and then I'll go back and fill in some of the blanks. We will have over 185,000 for a 12-month cycle. For this upcoming cycle, we discussed with the COG's homeless working group and with the city managers and with LASA and some of the service providers, what would be important programs that we could program in for our county grant funding. One of them that was raised by Malibu with the great working relationship that I have with Susan Duenas. She mentioned a nonprofit called West Coast Care that's been very effective in the coastal area, the South Bay and Santa Monica, in family reunification. And I know that family reunification may not work for every person that's experiencing homelessness, but there is that opportunity to build on the success that they've had in other areas. So we're proposing a 6-month pilot project that would focus on family reunification. And it's interesting, one of the, in doing the back and forth with the county, the homeless initiative team member that I work with most said, well, your target or your numbers really aren't that impressive. And I said, well, if there's 1 to 2 reunifications a month, I said that would be, 25 to maybe 50 reunifications a year. If that were to happen, that would make a significant impact on Malibu's homeless population. And I think part of the struggle that I have with the county's homeless team is that while they have a background in homeless programs, most of them haven't been on the street doing the kind of work that Gabriel does and the kind of work that the people concerned do. And so it's just a lot of back and forth and trying to educate them on a program like this. And anyway, we're hoping that the governing board would support this and that we could try it for 6 months. The other thing, of course, that the homeless grant would fund is Gabriel's efforts. And I half jokingly said to the CEO Homeless Initiative team recently that if it wasn't for the funding that we received to fund Gabriel's position, I'm not sure that I would spend the amount of time that I do in this for the COG. But obviously Gabriel's position is very important to the 5 cities. And in addition, if we can come up with additional programs that actually meet the needs of unhoused individuals in the COG cities, it would be important. So one of the other things that Gabriel and I had discussed, and we've discussed it with the service providers, the county, LASA, is having a direct client assistance program where funding could be allocated. I know there's many times where Gabriel has been working with a person experiencing homelessness that is living out of their car and their car needs repair. And Gabriel has been kind enough on his own to drive to get them a part that will help them get their car going again. And while we certainly appreciate his effort in doing that, it would be nice if the COG had a fund that could be used for car repair, rental assistance. One of the other things that was recently mentioned too that I hadn't thought of, but certainly makes a lot of sense, is that they might need to take their service animal or their therapy animal or just their pet to a vet for something. And so if there was a way to do that, that we thought that would be another important thing. The money, oh, and then lastly, I've requested a small amount go to administrative support. It would be nice for like $1,000 a month if I could have an administrative assistant that just works on homeless stuff. And I've, assured the county that that would be the case. They're not going to be doing any other COG stuff, but just on the statement of work and the contracts and the revisions and the back and forth has just become very time consuming. And I know that homelessness is a very important issue for our COG and for the entire county, or for the entire state for that matter. But and I don't mind spending the amount of time that I do, but it's like I spend this much time on homelessness and this much time on transportation and getting those kind of funding for projects that are important to the COG cities. So I'm just hoping that you would support that. It would, when we get to the annual allocation, it would probably be around $12,000, but for the 6 months, it would be $6,000. The numbers that are before you in my cover agenda report with regard to the statement of work are probably still going to be massaged a little bit, with the exception of Gabriel and the administrative support. The family reunification could be 40 or it could be 50,000, and the direct client assistance, that number is probably going to be significantly less than that. And what we've discussed doing is on the direct client assistance, trying to allocate it to where, just as an example, 75% of it would go to the Malibu area in SPA 5, and 25% of it would be allocated to SPA 2. We've discussed having a service provider assist us in that program, because the way Gabriel and I kicked it around initially was that he would recommend and he would investigate a request that somebody might have, or that something he's working on. It would come to me, and then we would discuss it and run it by the chair of the TAC or somebody else, just to make sure that there's more than one or two eyes on something like this. But if we could get a service provider to participate and administer it, that would make it somewhat easier. But we're still discussing that, and I have meetings tomorrow with some additional service providers to see if that'll work out. But that's a long way of saying that we have a 6-month grant from the county for homelessness that begins January, and those are the four, if you want to call them, buckets that we're proposing to allocate the funds to. And any other suggestion, recommendation, idea for a new program would be welcomed, because we certainly want to be innovative. We certainly want to make sure that the money goes to people that need it the most, and not to a bureaucratic process that can gobble up money very quickly and not actually have a lot to show for it out on the street. So that's where we are at this point. Happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for Terry?
Yeah, this is Mikey. I do quickly. I just want to give a little more context on West Coast Care and the founder Ron Hooks. I've known him and supported his program for a number of years. And while he is magic at getting people to reunify, it's much more than that. What he really does is he creates relationships with unhoused people because he's constantly there, and he gets them to agree to a plan, and then he does not stop until they execute that plan. And that plan can be reunification, it can be services, it can be, housing, whatever it is. But that's where his plan really succeeds. And the numbers are incredible in what he's done in Santa Monica and now other cities going south. So I just want to give a little more context on him, and an incredible guy to meet. He's really one of those transcendental human beings, to be honest. So thank you.
I appreciate that background, Mikey. Thank you.
I just wanted to add, I appreciate your thoughtfulness in everything on this subject matter and your ability to look outside of the box. I completely support all the efforts of not just adding another layer of bureaucracy to this very complicated matter. So I appreciate these efforts, and I think it's definitely worthwhile to support this on a trial basis, see what the results are.
Thanks, Alicia.
Anybody else? I do really support all of these things. I mean, as the president, I do talk to Terry frequently, and I do know how much time he actually spends on this. I mean, it's a lot. So I'm particularly supportive of the administrative support aspect of this because he needs the help. And, I can't, of course, say enough great things about Gabriel and his program. I think the direct client assistance thing is really important because, on a day-to-day basis, this is what Gabriel does, and emergencies come up and people need help right then, to solve a problem quickly, with the assistance of Gabriel. And it really goes to that. I think that's, I'm kind of babbling here, but I think that I'm really in support of that. And the more streamlined we can make that happen, so he can quickly assist in whatever they need. Like, as Terry said, vet, car, rent assistance, whatever could come up that week, that day. I think that's so important. So I'm 100% in favor of this. If anyone else wants to comment, please do.
Can I say something on that?
Absolutely, please, Gabriel. I'm sorry, I didn't ask you. Of course, yes.
Okay, so the other side of it too is also, public education, as far as individuals that live in your communities that are in apartment dwellings, letting them know that's available for them. And I don't know the best way to market that, but that's all about the preventing others from falling into homelessness.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Gabriel. Go ahead, Terry. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that's important. The flip side of it is that we have to be careful in that we don't get a number of people trying to come up with ulterior motives in order to get funding, which I know that's out there, whether it's unemployment relief or any other kind of thing. So it's obviously important, and it's important that we check into it to make sure that it's a valid assistance. But most of the things that Gabriel and I have talked about, and that we've talked about with Susan and with the homeless working group, appear to be things that we'll be able to address. And this could also be a program that we could try in 6 months. If it's successful, then we can figure out a way to make it more successful, and if not, then we can reevaluate it. But that's the good thing about all of this.
Okay, any more discussion? This will require a motion.
Yes.
Stuart? You're on mute.
Yeah, there I am. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Los Angeles County Homeless Grant as outlined by Terry Dipple.
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll take the roll. Agoura Hills,
Yes.
Calabasas,
Yes.
Hidden Hills,
Yes.
Malibu,
Yes.
Westlake Village, yes. So motion passes 5-0. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Terry, especially for all your work on that. It's a huge amount of work for you.
Well, it's, you
And
know,
it's important. but-
yeah, it is important.
Mhm.
It is important.
Okay, that brings us to general comments and requests for future agenda items. Anybody? So we will not meet in December per the normal schedule. Our next COG meeting will be January 18th, 2022, which will be our reorganization meeting where I will turn the reins over to my fellow board member from Malibu, Karen Fair. So if you have any other question, if you have any other agenda items or anything that you want on the January schedule, please tell myself or Terry. We'll add them to the agenda. Anybody have any comments they'd like to make before we adjourn? Okay, everyone's so quiet today. All right, thank you, everybody. Enjoy the Thanksgiving holiday with your families. We are thankful for you. And it's adjourned. Our meeting's adjourned 9:42. We're ahead of schedule today. Thank you.
Happy
Kelly.
holidays.
Thanks, Kelly.
Enjoy your Thanksgiving.